Well, we're delighted to have our next guest with us. He's won 3 Super Bowls. He's been NASCAR champion, his racing team, 3 titles. Joe Gibbs. Joe, thanks for being with us.
Hey, Fred, thank you. I think we share a lot in common. You've held as many jobs as I have.
The
only difference is I think they got rid of me because I couldn't hold them. I wasn't good enough to hold them. I think in your case you had more opportunities because you were talented.
Hey, listen, I've said many times, some of us just have a hard time holding a job. We got short attention spans.
That's correct.
They don't rank champion up next to my name on a lot of the things that I've done, though, Joe. I've been such an admirer of yours for a long time, obviously because of your success as a coach and with your racing team and so forth, but also because you go off the beaten path a little bit and are not afraid to talk about things that are important really to all of us in terms of living our lives.
Well,
and that's what you've written about here.
That is what I kind of wrote about here. And, of course, I've kind of, from afar, been able to admire you and the fact that, in the political world, I know you took some real stands. And, I think from that standpoint, I think we both share that in common. Yeah, this project, this book is it's definitely different for this reason. We have 11 scholars here. You don't have the PE major, that's me, writing on these 11 important topics. You have 11 scholars that have spent their lives studying what God has to say about those topics. Mm-hmm. And the topics came about from a survey that we went out in America and said, what are the different topics or issues that America says they need to have victory in to live a modern-day successful life. And the idea behind this project and what I believe in my life, the reason why my story is through there is because, I really believe there's a game plan left for us here. I think you and I are playing the biggest game of all, the game of life. God's our head coach. And would he put us here without a game plan? No, it's his Bible. But the problem is, I think lots of times, from a country standpoint and from an individual standpoint, and certainly in my life as a testimony, I veered away from those principles and God's game plan, and I got in real trouble.
Yep.
Well, so I tell people, read the book. I'll save you 10 years of misery.
Well, a lot of us can identify with that, Joe. And I notice here that you're very practical. The book, by the way, Game Plan for Life. Your personal playbook for success, and you talk about things not only salvation and creation and so forth, but also finances, vocation, health, and things of that nature by these various people. And as you point out, you look at it from a game plan standpoint. One of the things that you mentioned to me that really resonated, that I think really it pertains to politics and all of life, is that human nature does not change. And people say this old Bible is pretty old and maybe outdated, some people say, and how can we relate that to modern times? But we as human beings are pretty much the same we've always been.
I definitely agree with that. And Fred, the people asked me from the first time I coached, and then I took an 11-year break, and I came back and coached another 4 years. They said, what changed in the NFL? And I said to them, almost everything from a technical standpoint. The one thing that did not change has been human nature. And for me, in coaching teams and trying to put teams together and recruit people for 35 years or so, the one thing that has not changed is human nature. I think people are good with people today, will be good with people 40 years from now. Mm-hmm. And I think down through history, you're exactly right. When I get 3 main objections to the Bible if somebody's going to object. Number one, they would say to me, Joe, that was written 2,000 years ago. It's not relevant today. The second thing they'll say, Joe, that's kind of a thick book with some strange language. It's intimidating for me. And the third one would be, hey, I'm interested in specific subjects. It's hard for me to find those subjects. And that's what this project was all about. We tried to answer each one of those 3 objections to God's Word. And Fred, I know many times I've heard you, like in the political discussions and everything, you know what, I really as we go forward in America, what I'd love to have people say in those discussions about those key issues, I'd love to have somebody say, I wonder what God thinks about this.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, that's what I want to know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's his stand? What's God think about life? You know, what's he think about this world he's put together? How about countries and the moral issues that we should be following? And to me, I kind of want to spend the rest of my life saying to people, I think this will be the most important thing I do in my life, other than the influence I've had.
Joe, let me ask you this: how do you, as a coach, you have these strong feelings, and I think probably the most valuable thing that you do is the example that you set. But you have these young men of all kinds, and you see things that they do and say and so forth. And I know you'd probably like to take them one by one, you know, and counsel with them and so forth. And you can't do that as a coach. How do you reconcile that?
Well, first of all, when you put together a team like that, and whether it's a business team or a sports team, you're going to have all cross sections of faith in there. You're going to have, you know, everybody's different moral outlook on a lot of things. Well, you as the coach, first of all, I think the most important thing in putting together a team is picking your initial players. After all, if we pick the right players, they're going to make us look good. Well, the one thing we've learned with the Redskins over those years, and that we use over here in motorsports too, is the first thing we look for is character. What kind of person he is. I didn't say faith. You don't ask people,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what their faith.
And that's your core. That's your core group.
Correct. And you start with that, because if you don't have the right people that have the right kind of character issues, then you're going to have huge problems. It doesn't matter what kind of talent they have or how smart they are in the sport.
Well, let me ask you that, if I may, just a little
Sure.
bit. How much does character count these days in recruiting or in the pro area, the draft? How much time do people put, or does it vary greatly by team?
It'll vary by team, but I'll tell you this, Fred. Most teams, for instance, with the Redskins, we had little orange. We had little orange flags, okay? And so a player, it doesn't matter how talented he was or how smart he was in football, if he had a character issues in his background, and that's one of the things we learned, go all the way back in the background as far as you can, all the way to junior high if you can,
Mm-hmm.
because that gives you the history of this person. If he had character issues, we put that little orange flag on him. And to be quite truthful for me as a head coach, what I would tell the scouts or anybody else when we were in that draft room, I said, look, we can't afford to take those problems.
Sooner or later.
Because in the end, the guys that you take that don't have the orange flags, they're going to have some problems too. That's just part of what we are as human nature. And so that kind of gives you a little bit of background. And for us, it started first.
Sooner or later.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, they're going to let you down if they don't change their ways. Just from a practical standpoint, it doesn't pay off.
They're going to get in trouble off the field.
Yeah.
And those are the things that, and really, the one thing about football, you're going to be tested. And I'm sure the political world, I haven't been in it, but I'll guarantee you, I'll bet you guys when you sit in those rooms, you're going to get tested.
Hey, it looks like Lou Holtz is getting in, Joe. You been reading about that?
Let's say this. I think he's so good on some of those shows. I say, man, he's got opinion. I went on some of those shows, and I had to tell him, look, I'm not qualified to debate some of these subjects. Lou is awesome.
Lou's going for it. I hope that he does. I gotta finish here, but I just got to say one thing. We have more in common than you realize. I was a friend of Robert Fraley also. In fact, we practiced law together for a little while years ago.
Well,
you mentioned him in the book. He died young, and you point out how we're reminded so often how God does not take us in order.
No, it's a fragile thing, life is.
Joe, thank you so much for being with us. The book is Game Plan for Life, ladies and gentlemen. Joe Gibbs, thank you so much.